very quickly after I jumped in, I realized that health and fitness is my passion, but real estate became my obsession. So ended up just hitting the pavement hard, dude. Did 40 deals my first year.
Joshua Smith has sold over 7,000 homes, and for the first time ever, he breaks down his entire framework of how to build massive momentum as an agent, especially during a shifting market. He breaks down step by step exactly what to do to win every single day and guarantee that you hit your goals, including how to make sure that you're tracking your numbers in order to guarantee massive success. Now, for those who don't know Josh, he's one of the most respected coaches in the entire industry. He's built his own brokerage to over 1,500 agents and is an absolute rock star when it comes to no BS mentality of how to win in real estate. Two quick things before we get started. Number one, I'm going to link all of Josh's incredible content below. His YouTube channel is a wealth of knowledge that completely changed the course of my business. But not only that, number two, I'm going to link his incredible training program below. This is a training program that I've seen so many agents go through and go from struggling to do any deals to doing over 6 figures in the next 12 months. So if you're struggling and you need a proven blueprint of exactly what to do in order to break 6 figures as a new agent or struggling agent, check the link in the description and the pinned comment. And I can tell you from experience that his training program is absolutely incredible. So without further ado, let's show you how to build massive momentum and build the real estate business of your dreams. All right, guys, we got a super exciting one today, and this is one that I've been waiting for a long time because this is actually how I kicked off my YouTube journey. So we've got on a very special guest that most of you probably already know, Joshua Smith with GSD Mode and Get Shit Done. Josh, super excited to have you here, man. Our journey goes back like 5 years now, and exciting to see how things have changed for both of us.
Yeah, man, I'm freaking stoked, fired up, and honored to be here, dude. And I got to tell you, man, it has been, because like you mentioned, man, we met when you were just in the infancy stages of all of this, dude, and watching you blow up and your continued success, man, it's so awesome seeing all of it, dude. So I commend you on everything that you're doing, man, and it's just so awesome to see you, brother.
Thank you, dude. It means the world to me. And again, your content was the inspiration for me when I got started, and it's exciting to see that we could both be on this journey together now. So, for people that might not have, been consuming your incredibly valuable content, why don't you just give people a quick, rundown as to who you are, where you're from, what you've done, what you continue to do. And then we'll dive into some of the tactical of what agents could be doing to dominate during these times of uncertainty.
Yeah, dude. So, for me, man, it's all real estate, dude. Like and it wasn't supposed to be. I grew up in the health club business. My dad owned and operated gyms for 30 years. I thought that that's what I was going to do for my whole entire life. At the age of 23, I was running, health club chains, but I made the decision at that moment that, dude, the only way that I'm going to go out there and achieve my financial goals in that industry is to become an owner. But in that industry, dude, it's a lot of upfront capital. The facility I wanted to go out there and start was going to cost $800,000. Now I'm a college dropout. You don't make a lot of money in management, right? So, I had a couple $1,000 to my name, if that. And I was like, dude, I got to raise some capital. I couldn't go out there and get a loan. So I was like, what vehicle could I jump into that I could do this quickly, that within a few years, 3-4 years, I could at least raise enough for a down payment. And at this time, it was 2005. So Phoenix, Arizona, 2005. Now, 2005, I know a lot of your listeners and watchers probably weren't in the market at that time. It was very similar to like what we experienced in 2021 as an example. Just multiple offers every single, like the real estate market was just exploding, right? So my perception was everybody in real estate is murdering it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to jump into that vehicle, dude. I'll go out there and just raise a bunch of capital. I'm like, dude, I love people. I love sales. I love working my ass off. I'm a workhorse. Like I can make this thing happen. And, very quickly after I jumped in, I realized that health and fitness is my passion, but real estate became my obsession, so, ended up just hitting the pavement hard, dude. Did 40 deals my first year. That led me to starting my team in 2006. I wanted to double my business the next year, but I couldn't fathom how to do it. Because, dude, back then I'm aging myself here, but no smartphones, no DocuSign. Like we weren't even using fucking scanners at the time, right? So, it just took a little bit more time per deal. But even then, 48 deals is that, even with technology, it still might have been my capacity today. I don't know. But anyway, I brought in my assistant, popped 103 deals the next year. And then at that point, it got to a point where, now this is again, aging myself, but it's back to old Franklin calendars, right? So I'm looking at, I'd have, buyers and sell, like people call me that want to do business with me, but I'm like 3 weeks booked out of my calendar. So then I realized, dude, I'm just pissing away money. And at that time, teams weren't even a thing. Like you didn't, and dude, like there wasn't YouTube, there wasn't podcasts, so I'm like, well, how do I not miss out on this money? So I started bringing on agents, but it was a little bit different, of a team structure initially, because it was, they existed really inside my organization to handle all my overflow, because I just had too much business that I just couldn't handle. So it wasn't like just giving them leads. It was, hey man, like you got to take these clients that I can't work. And that just, metamorphosized into the team. And, then, my because I grew up in the business world, I always wanted to create a business, like meaning, like I was able to watch my father with the gyms where, dude, like he could go take a vacation, he could go peace out, and the facilities operated, I mean, they may not have grown massively without his involvement, but like, dude, like, everything was being serviced, things were, so that's what I always wanted. I was like, dude, I want to have a business that I can step out of it. I can disappear for 2-3 months and have things operating without my involvement. So, ended up taking me about 10 years to do it. And part of that, I was on a trajectory to where I think I could have done it in about 4 years, but then the great financial crisis happened and things got turned upside down, went from just the, height of the height to the worst housing market crash in recorded history. And we had to reinvent ourselves and figure that out. And a lot of it was, a lot of these big asset managers and banks would only deal with me directly. So I really got sucked back in, during that time. But anyway, it took me about 10 years to get to a point where I was fully out of production and operations, and then that led into, though, other ventures in this industry, coaching programs, software, now franchising, and, all of this. But it's all in the same ecosystem of real estate, man. I just, I've contemplated, and we were talking off air, I've taken time off to think about, like, do I want to, go down other entrepreneur paths. But every time I just come, like, dude, I don't know. This is the industry that's had the biggest impact on every aspect of my life. I owe a debt of gratitude to it. And I feel it's the best vehicle that I can serve and support our industry and go out there and hope to have an impact on other people's lives that this industry and my mentors have had on me.
Yeah, man. Well, I think, it's so cool to see the impact that you can have, because I think, we're also in this space now that we do have YouTube, we do have social media, where there's a lot of people talking about what you should be doing and all this kind of stuff, but they're not practitioners and they don't actually walk the walk. They're just talking the talk and, taking what you say and applying it to other people. And I think that, it's a rare breed nowadays to find people like yourself that are very genuine, very authentic, very transparent, but you've actually done it, and you've done it at the highest level. And I think that's a breath of fresh air for a lot of people that are seeking guidance from people that actually have done it, because there's a lot that haven't.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because dude, you get enough repetitions. Like, like with you, with like YouTube and social, like you got this stuff down to a science and an art, like, cause not only have you done it, you're continuing to do it, right? So then, I've sold over 7,000 homes, so it's like, dude, like I know exactly what it takes. Like if anybody tells me, hey, I'm here, I want to get to here, whether it's an agent team or brokerage, it's like, dude, it's so easy to reverse architect those plans, put that plan in place together. Well, we know exactly what to help them go out there and do it. And again, I think I'm just one of those blessed human beings where I just found my obsession and I'm able to get paid off of my obsession. It's like, and I don't care what level, like if I have a brand new agent, or in a season, I know some in this industry, they get to a level where they're like, man, I only like talking to other, high level business leaders. I don't like having those conversations. Like I'm so obsessed with every element of it, dude. I don't care if we're talking about objection handlers. I don't care if we're talking about spreadsheets. I don't care. Like I love every aspect of it, and just, yeah, man, blessed and honored to be able to, figure out a way to make money at it too.
Well, I think, we'll be able to unpack that later as well about the mindset of that obsession, because I've seen, I remember you and I had a conversation years back about, what you were doing on Infusionsoft and seeing the wizardry that you had crafted on there before making changes and just being obsessed with the journey. And I think a lot of people are obsessed with the outcome, but they're not obsessed with the growth that is going throughout the journey, which is the most exciting part. Like I find this all the time, you hit 100,000 subscribers or 80 or whatever your achievement is, and you're working so hard toward it, and then you get it and you're like, all right, cool, now 1 million. And the journey is the more exciting part. And I think you've demonstrated that at such a high level. So, we're obviously in quirky times, and there's a lot of people that have mixed feelings about what's going on. good, bad, or ugly, but I think it's the most exciting time as an agent. And I think, competition is dwindling. People are either mentally checking out or physically checking out. But there's a lot of people that are looking for guidance as to what should you be doing during these times in order to thrive. And I think you've got so much incredible content on these topics of, finding low-hanging fruit, perfecting your craft, having the right mindset. For people that are maybe struggling right now, what is your approach to helping an agent scale from maybe 0 or 5 deals up to actually building momentum?
Yeah. And there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, first, you mentioned mindset, and mindset is so, and I know this stuff gets blown out of proportion. It's like everything today is motivation mindset, right? And, but I look at it more of mental philosophies that we must operate by in order to create success. So what are those strategic, mental, again, philosophies, mindsets, whatever you want to frame that as? Number one, you got to understand that success is always internal, never external. Right? Winners do not blame outside circumstances. That's what victims do. And by this, I mean, and how it pertains to real estate, is victims and a victim mindset, a loser mindset that's not going to serve you, blame the market for their lack of success. Right? Well, winners, like, they understand, again, success is internal, it's not external. The market has nothing to do with my overall success. Real estate's always traded hands, always has, always will. Right. So it's operating from, again, this mental philosophy that there is no such thing as a good market or a bad market. The market is always good for somebody. As real estate professionals, that's our job at the highest level, to identify whom the current market is great for, and then go out there, pivot, shift, and adapt to whom it's great for. So just, that understanding, because I hear so many, dude, and I saw this back in 08 as well. So many agents that were like, oh, dude, I had to get out of the business, man. Nobody saw this market coming. Number one, I was like, how the fuck did you not see this coming? Now, we didn't know, I'll be honest, I didn't know the magnitude it was coming from, but as an example of my market. And this is where, because I'm a little bit unique, I guess, in the way that, like, I love the front end and I love the back end. Like, meaning, I love all the marketing, I love all the sales, but then I also love the analytics, and I love data, and I love tracking. So like, okay, here's an example. Our market peaked in May of 05. Then things fell off a cliff in the beginning of 08 when Lehman Brothers collapsed, Bear Stearns collapses, right? But when you looked at that, it was a 31-month slow progression. And when we look at real estate is no different than any other product that comes down to supply and demand. So now luckily I just had great mentors that told me what to track and how to track. I didn't realize at the time that everybody else wasn't tracking this data, but you could sit there and watch that progression, and making those adjustments. I'm like, dude, you had 31 months to prepare for this, right? Like, how were you not prepared, and pivoted? And people ask, like, dude, how did you not just survive that, but go out there and thrive and murder and kick ass? It was like, all right, again, like month over month. I mean, I was just paying attention to inventory rate, paying attention to historic data. Okay, when inventory gets to 5 months, historically, what kind of business has been had? Okay, well, short sales and REO. Okay, well, what do I need to do to start prepping for short sales and REO? Okay, well, we all have freaking Google, at our fingertips. Like, it's not difficult to go figure this stuff out. So that's number one, is just that right mindset. Then of course we got to be paying attention. But then from there, when it comes down to, then the question comes, okay, well, how do I shift? How do I pivot during these different times? So then it's, again, under that understanding that the real estate market's always good for somebody. Now, this is just what I operate by, and I love to operate off of frameworks, right? So, it just helps me keep in alignment. So my 5-step lead generation framework is this. Okay, number one, you identify who the market is good for, AKA that becomes your ideal client. Now, at any given time, we're probably going to have a multitude of different ideal clients, but each ideal client, I'm going to throw through this framework separately. So, okay, who's the market good for? And from there, we're just looking at, okay, who's buying, who's selling, what are they buying, what are they selling, where are they buying in your market, where are they selling in your market, what are those price points, where are they coming from, where are they going? Again, like, this stuff isn't difficult to figure out. And then again, people ask me, like, well, how I'm still having a challenge figuring this out. And I get it, is let's just say, when you said, an agent at 0, they're not closing deals, they're not really so maybe they're not seeing where the trends are. Okay, well, you still have the MLS, you still have that data, but then from there, have a lot of conversations with your lender partners, have a lot of conversations with your title and escrow partners. They see a lot more volume than typically, an individual agent would, so they can see those trends. I'm always asking, man, like what's up, what's down? Is it investors? Is it, what type of buyers, what type of, here's an example of this. This is about 6 months ago. I'm talking with one of our lender partners. I'm like, dude, what are you seeing out there? He goes, man, what I'm starting to see is a lot of these multi-generational buyers now in our market. And now this is something that's been common in California for a long time, but my market here in Phoenix, we've always been known for affordability. So this is the first time in my 18 years of doing this that this has become a common thing. So multi-generational, what that means is you got these millennials that are teaming up with their parents, these boomers, buying a house together and living in that home together, co-owning that home together, because, then you can have 4 people making minimum wage that now can afford a $500,000 property. So then from there, I'm like, okay, well, what areas, what price points, right? Are there any, and I know that these are questions that we can't, necessarily market after, but the questions I'm going to ask, like, I want to know demographics, right? Like, okay, is there, specific, genders, ages, ethnicities, that you see this more in than others, but then I was like, okay, well, who's initiating this? Right? Like, is it like, who's leading the process? Is it the kids or is it the parents? Because if I'm marketing to boomers or prospecting to boomers, that's going to be different than millennials, so then from there, then I can put that marketing message match. So, okay, so we're looking at, who the market's good for. That gives you your ideal client. Then the next step is I identify, okay, what are the demographics of that ideal client? Next step is I'm identifying what are the psychographics. And there's a lot that go into psychographics, but a quick, easy way to just explain this for a quick, easy way that's powerful to explain this. I mean, this is when it comes to marketing, as this is so insanely important, right? Is just think of this in pain and pleasure terms. All right. Because as real estate professionals, like we don't really sell, we don't have a product to sell, meaning people already sold on real estate. It's not our real estate. So what are we actually selling? We are selling that we are the best guide to get people from where they're at to where they want to go, right? So whoever articulates that the best is going to go out there and get that business. All right. So if they're here at point A, they want to get to point B. Okay, well, what are those blocks? What's prohibiting them from moving to point A to point B? I need to identify that. That's the pain, right? That's blocking them to get to that pleasure. Okay, I got to then figure out what those solutions are and go out there and articulate. Those then become my USPs, my unique selling propositions, right? So like an example, okay, people are like, well, dude, I want to go out there and buy. Because I started wrapping my head around, about March or April, around April or May of last year, I should say, 2022. And I'm like, dude, it's the best time that we've seen to buy in over 3 years. And I'm like, everybody and their sister wanted to buy a year ago when there's 100 offers on every single property. I mean, it was just stupid shit. Worst time to ever buy in the history of my career. I'm like, everybody and their sister wanted to buy then. Now I'm like, you can go, you don't have the bidding wars. You can go pick out the property that you want, get all the amenities, everything that you want, location that you want. You're able to get that property for 50 to 100 grand less. I'm like, why the hell aren't people buying right now? Well, it's interest rates. Right? So then I'm like, okay, well, what are the solutions to go out there and solve this interest rate problem? So then, and dude, I'm ashamed to admit it, but I didn't know this up until this time, but I didn't realize as a conventional buyer here in the States, you can get up to a 9% seller concession. So I'm like, okay, well, if we can do that, we can use 2 to 3% of that for closing costs. And a lot of these people were already prepared to pay their own closing costs because from the previous market. So then I'm like, dude, if we have 9% for a rate buy down, okay, we can get them back to, those extremely affordable rates. Now it's a win on every front, and then we had to go find, okay, well, who's desperate enough as far as sellers to go out there and give a 9% seller concession, which was new builds. And we're in a lot of these iBuyers that things dried up with, cost of capital going up, but that's, so psychographics, pain and pleasure, right? So then from there, the next thing is, where do they congregate? And this is why I was asking that question of like, dude, is it a millennial or is it a boomer? Like, I mean, you're the social media king, dude, right? So it's like, okay, well, is this demographic, are they on TikTok? Are they on Facebook? Are they on Instagram? Right? Or are they somewhere else? Like, I need to make sure that my message is showing up where they are physically at. Like if I'm networking and I'm a badass networker, but I'm in a room of a bunch of 16, 17-year-olds, that doesn't serve me in this industry, right? Like I got to make sure I'm in the right room, right? So, I don't know if you've ever read Perry Marshall's 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
But he has an analogy in there I love. He's like, dude, if I'm selling Bibles, I'm probably not going to a strip club to sell those Bibles because my avatar probably isn't hanging out in the strip club, right? So, and it's an extreme example, but I love it because it articulates the point so well. So where do they congregate? And then the last thing that I look at is, okay, based on my strengths and how I want to grow my business and my overall model for scalability, how can I attack this thing? So when we look at this, the ideal client demographics give me who I'm targeting. The ideal client psychographics give me what my message needs to be. Where they congregate shows where my message is going to show up. And then based on my strengths and how I need to scale my business gives me how my message is going to be delivered. So now I know, who I'm targeting, what my message needs to be, where my message needs to show up and how it's going to be delivered. And putting that together, it's like, okay, like I'll give an example that's a little bit more difficult. When I realized, okay, dude, I got to get into REO. I got to get in with banks. I was able to get in with 35 different banks and asset managers back in the great financial crisis. I was like, okay, well, how do, demographics were impossible to figure out. So this isn't always perfect for every scenario, because I'm dealing with an institution, right? Not necessarily a single human being. But then from there, I'm like, just through due diligence, I found out really quickly what those pain points were with asset managers. So the pain points were, okay, they didn't have trusted real estate partners that they could rely on to do the tasks they needed done well and do them in the time frame so they could meet their bonuses, right? So it's a huge frustration for asset managers. People are like, well, how'd you figure that out, dude? You spend time, like you do everything. I mean, interviewing other REO agents in other markets, because sometimes in your own market, people are a little operate from a scarcity mindset, but attending industry events, everything I possibly could, messaging on LinkedIn, whatever I possibly could, just to, get the LinkedIn, I don't think exists at that point. So, but that could be a strategy now, but anyway, I found that, okay, that's a pain point. Then as far as where they congregate, I found out very quickly that, okay, if you call an asset manager, that's the quickest way to piss them off, right? They're in their email box all day long, so email them. So then I was like, okay, I got to go out there and get these email addresses. So I just started buying lists, spent several $1,000s on buying every asset manager list I possibly could. There's so many just list scrubbing companies out there. So then from there, I started emailing them every Friday and then the last business day before every single holiday. And that email message was just, hey, happy Friday. Hope you're having a great week. Just wanted to let you know that I'm available. I'm around all weekend. If there's anything that you need, I know you've got amazing agents that you work with, but if you can't get a hold of your agent for any reason, you need anything, I am available for it. If you need a free BPO, if you need emergency board up, whatever it is that you need. And I put in their messaging that I'm not asking for you to give me business. I'm asking for a way to then show that I can be an asset to you. So then if you ever have a need for an agent in our market, that maybe you think of me, right? So I never begged. I was just like, dude, let me go out there, do free shit for you to earn this opportunity to prove that I'm an asset. And then, before every holiday. So I'd be like, hey, we just want to wish you and your family a Merry Christmas. Just so you know, I'm available. I'm like, if it's Christmas morning and there's an emergency on your property, you can't get a hold of your agent. I don't care if my kids are opening presents. You call my cell phone. I will leave my kids opening their damn presents to go do what you need to do. Because I could read the writing on the wall that this thing was going to get ugly, right? So, and that just led to one account, then led to the next account, and it just kept spiraling, right? So you gotta, like right now, what I'm hearing so many agents struggle with, because transaction volume decline all throughout North America, it's down almost 40%. So you got almost 40% less people willing or able to transact in this given market. So number one, when we're looking at a market like this, it's like, okay, we need to hedge for that. So first thing that we did is we looked at every one of our lead sources, right? And we're like, okay, well, we got to generate 40% more leads, do 40% more activities, 40% more follow-up to get the same result. That's number one. Right? Because we've never seen, as far as the longest month over month transaction volume decline, is also, if you look at the rate of decline, put those two together, this is the first time in recorded history since NAR started taking stats that we've seen these two things come together in this manner. So, most people are just trying to do what they did in, 2019, 2020, 2021, expecting the same result. Well, that's the definition of insanity, right? So, but then from there, man, like you don't want to shotgun, man. Like you need to be a sniper in this market. So you got to be more strategic, So example, this, I had a dude reach out to me the other day that was like, hey man, I've been, historically cold calling, circle prospecting, and it's worked really well. But now, man, nobody's motivated. It's just not working. And I'm like, yeah, dude, it's not the phone that's broken. It's not the cold calling that's broken. Now, I'm not a personally a cold caller, but they freaking work, right? So I'm like, dude, you're shotgunning, and you're shotgunning all these people that, like, where are they going to go, dude? They're locked in at 3-4% interest rates. Like, where are they going to move? Where are they going to go? You're calling unmotivated people. I'm like, who's motivated in this market? So we just made a list. I was like, okay, look at short-term, rental property owners. If you look at like Airbnb, just as one example, they are down to about 85% vacancy rates, nation. I mean, it's the lowest vacancy rates or lowest occupancy rates since the inception of that organization. I mean, all those short-term rentals in most markets, there's some exceptions to the rule, but most, they're just getting murdered. They're just getting crushed. Like in my market, dude, they're just bleeding capital all over the place. I'm like, boom, target them. They have a pain point. They need to go out there and sell. Like most markets right now, it might still be hot, but they're seeing increases in month-over-month inventory rates. Right? They're seeing the rate of appreciation. Like all the signs are there that either the market's already peaked or it's close to that peak. At the same time, we're starting to see rental, suppression on rental rates. So I'm like, going after short-term investors, going after long-term investors, buying holds. Like if they want to ever capitalize on peak prices and peak rents, because writings on the wall that more than likely, we don't know this for sure, but more than likely, they're probably going to go down. So if they want to capitalize on that, now's a good time to sell. Absentee owners, right? Like one of the reasons inventory got so low the last few years, dude, is because you had all these boomers buying second homes, buying third homes, but whatever, holding on to this real estate. Well, now with inflation, their fixed incomes, then you've got, all these other asset classes, getting hammered, bond market, stock market, whatever, it's putting them in a tighter situation. So, so again, being that sniper, not shotgunning. I know I went super long there. I'll just shut up.
No, dude, I love it. That's exactly what everybody needs to hear. And I think, unpacking a couple things there that I think are super important is positioning based on opportunity, and what gets measured gets managed. And I think when I talk to anybody like you, or I talk to some of the people that we know, you talk to, the Brandon Mulrennans or the James Rempert, Zillow killer, who we just had on, they know their numbers and they know where the opportunity lies and can position their marketing and their advertising to that opportunity. And I think, as you're alluding to, a lot of people just get stuck in the monotonous way of doing business, almost in the employee mindset, not the business owner mindset. Business owners are always going to pivot to capitalize on trends, opportunities, and things that are going to yield massive profit. And employees are just doing the same repetitive tasks that they're familiar with. And I think that shift, what you already alluded to in the beginning of this, is you wanted to create a business, not just a solopreneur type employee mindset. And I think being able to identify those trends is so important. But one of the things that I'd love to maybe unpack is like the measurement aspect of it, of knowing the numbers, knowing the opportunity, gathering the data, and doing whatever it takes in order to actually make these calculated decisions. So for you, where do a lot of agents fall short when it comes to knowing their numbers, being able to look at the opportunities of the data, right? And I think the data, the fact that you were so prepared, says a lot about you being a student of the game. Where do people fall short there?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many places people fall short, dude. Right? But yeah, let's go specific into what you're talking about there. And one thing I want to bring up, just so I don't forget, so you might be able to remind me, is and this comes down to, again, you can be the best realtor or the best team leader, the best brokerage owner, but if you don't have consistent new clients coming in that door, you're going to be the best realtor, team leader, broker owner. Right? So, one thing that's also really important, to maximize conversions, which will lead us into tracking, is, you also need to understand that each lead source is different. You got to understand, based on that, what that lead source is, what the psychology is and what the timeline is of that lead source. My overall strategy for our Zillow leads is vastly different than our Facebook leads, vastly different than our open houses, vastly different from FSBOs, vastly different from expireds, right? Vastly different from short sales. So understanding psychology and timeline, and we can circle back to that later if you want to. Then from there, I look at it like you got to know the game, you got to understand the game, you got to master the game. Then from there, you got to have dialed in processes for every step of the game, right? And if we look at the game, it starts with activities, your lead generation, your activities. Then from there, those activities exist to generate leads. And then if the leads, obviously that's where the funnel begins, the real estate funnel, but then leads exist to go out there and set appointments. Appointments set exist to go out there and conduct them. Appointment conductions exist to convert them into clients for under contracts, boom, spit out a commission check, past client. Now it repeats, becomes your number one lead source. So we got to make sure that we know it, we understand it, that we're playing the game, that we've mastered the game. Then from there, we got to have dialed in processes for every step of the game. And processes are just what are the step-by-step actions that we do to get the desired result. So when people talk about systems and processes, the analogy I always use is a cookbook, right? The cookbook is the system But then inside there, you got all these recipes, right? The recipes are the processes that live inside that system, right? So gotta have, anything you do more than once, pull out of your head, put onto paper, so you have a documented process for it. Then wrap that process into a system to ensure to help you execute on it more effectively, efficiently. But then from there, ensure things don't get missed. And then eventually, like as you scale, you got to plug people in eventually, right? So, even though I have, several hundred people that work with or for me directly, I don't have to manage people. I manage the systems that manage the people and hold the people accountable, right? So, but then from there, you got to track every element of the game. Right. So, that's just, it's just like, and the more that you track, the more ways that you're able to go out there and win and improve, so when I'm tracking, okay, at a minimum, I'm tracking, okay, number of leads per lead source. Then I'm tracking, if there's a cost associated to it, or if it's time associated to it, let's just say it's something like an open house that isn't paid, right? A paid traffic source. Okay. Well, I want to know, what's my average leads per open house? And what's the average time investment that I have in that open house to equate to how many leads, then how many leads to a closing, of course. And then from there though, I also want to track, effort, so per lead source, like I'm breaking down, well, how many reach outs, how many conversations, how many appointments set, how many appointment conductions, how many clients. So then I know precisely, what I need to be doing each and every day, what those KPIs are to make that a reality. So yeah, number of, our leads. Then from there, okay, well, how many reach outs to how many conversations, to how many appointments set to conductions to clients to closings. And then obviously, of course, we're tracking, closing percentage, because and I'm sure you see this all the time, but I see people all the time, like talk about Facebook leads. Like, oh, dude, I'm generating this Facebook lead for this, like one of my campaigns right now, my Facebook leads are like $38. But I'm getting a 22x ROI because our conversions are so high, with that. I'm just the targeting, the message match. Yeah, there's lesser of them. It's a higher price point. It's, but people are bragging about $2 leads, and I can go get 80-cent leads if I want. I can go out there and run ads about, I don't know, foreclosures, and I get a bunch of wannabe investors that are opted, or buy less than you can rent. Right? Where, okay, then I'm having to sit and sort through 500 freaking leads to get one closing. So my, energy is much more, my cost per acquisition is much more. So you got to pay attention to the right shit, and then from there, like little things, like so often people are like, dude, I need more leads. I want more leads. But I'm like, look, you got all these holes inside your bucket and inside the funnel. And they're like, you just want to be adding more water. But it doesn't matter how much more water you add, because these fucking holes, it's pouring out. Like, fix the holes first. Like, I'm all about generating more leads, So an example of this is, all right, dude, if you were running a 50% appointment set to conduction ratio, which is industry average, like in my team, like we strive for 75% or greater. Okay, well, like that one little hinge makes a massive impact on your overall business. Like the average agent, like usually when I say the average agent, your average full-time agent that's been doing this for a little bit of time, that, maybe he's making, average numbers, your 6-12 deals a year, whatever. It's like, usually by just getting the tracking dialed in and seeing where those holes are at and patching those holes, it's like we can get them netting 30, 40, 50 grand more a year without doing any more work or spending any more money, just because their conversion rates suck because they have so many holes, right? So you got to understand like what those are. And then, per lead source, like understand what your conversion rates need to be and what they should be, because then you can sit there and refine that process. A homie of mine, it's the number one team in the state of Michigan. It comes to me years ago. He's telling me a story about how his office manager comes in like, dude, we need to drop Zillow. And I'm not saying to do Zillow. I'm not saying to do these other things. To me, it's just do whatever works and whatever you get an ROI on. Like we're blessed to be in an industry where there's thousands of ways to skin a cat, right? But so his manager comes and is like, dude, we're just trading dollars on Zillow. Like this isn't work. Like we just cut this. Should just cancel this. He's like, all right, well, give me a night to think about it. So he goes home at night. Now, these are his words, not mine, but he's like, dude, Zillow is this, at that time, they had like a $10 billion market cap. It's like, this is a multi-billion-dollar organization. And he's like, and I'm a nobody compared to them in the business world. And here I am saying that they suck and we need to drop them. He goes, maybe we suck. So then he goes and just refines all their processes, make sure that they have the right proven follow protocol and right processes for that. And now he's the number one converter I know on Zillow. He's got like his number one agent right now in his Zillow account, dude, is at 26% conversions, dude. Right? So know what that is. Like, like if you're doing YouTube, right? I mean, I have so many agents that I coach and that are within my organization that are fucking making 50, 60, some are upwards of multiple six figures a month just off their YouTube accounts. Okay. Well, like we need to know, like, okay, like, are you at a 20% conversion rate or a 40% conversion rate? Right? 20% should be the minimum. We want to strive for that upwards of 40% conversion rates, right? With that, and, how many leads per video are you creating? What are those call to actions? Like really breaking those down to understand what those expectations are and where you need to get to work. But if you're not tracking, how can you possibly do that? Like if you want to get a better result, you at a minimum, you have to have a way to measure that thing that you're doing. It's like when I was a personal trainer, I wouldn't go out. It's like first thing that we did, we got on the scale, we did your measure, all your body weight measurements. And then, we would figure out, or we check their body fat, and then of course I figured out what they were doing. We put a strategy and a plan together. Well, every single week, what are we doing? Get back on that scale, doing the measurements, checking the body fat to make sure we're making the right progress. And if we're not making the right progress, let's just say I had somebody that was 50 pounds overweight. Okay, well, a healthy, a goal there, or just like 2 pounds a week. Like you don't want to lose weight too quickly because that can have some negative repercussions and, with that. So then I'm like, okay, we got to make sure that we are losing 2 pounds every single week. And if we are not, okay, well then let's look at what you ate over last week. Let's look at what your workouts were. Let's see what we went wrong so we can solve the problem. Well, if we're not tracking and measuring those things, number one, how do we know there's a problem? Number two, how do we possibly fix the fucking problem?
Yeah, man, I love it. And I think I love the conversation related to marketing and advertising. And I think not enough people ask what their objectives should be. And I think as you talked about demographics and psychographics, so many people are not meeting their client where they need to be. They're just making assumptions as to where they could be. But also, I loved what you talked about related to the ROI on ad spend, because I hear this all the time. Mike, I've spent $500, but I don't have a client. Well, if I spend $500 and I could get a $5,000 commission check, I'd be a billionaire today, right? If you could do that repeatedly over time. It's, they're looking at the money spent, but not the money that could be earned, and tracking based on a full cycle, what the return can be in order to make it just a profitable business like you're talking about. And, I see it all the time too, where people, I think it's a detriment of the industry, is that leads is the buzzword that everybody's talking about. Conversations and appointments is not. And you can have a conversation with 1,000 leads, but if they don't turn into appointments, or if you get 1,000 leads and none turn into conversations, you're broke, right? And not enough people are plugging the holes in the bucket, but also, like you alluded to, sharpening the skill set of your toolkit, in the sense of, if you have 100 leads, but you're converting at 1%, you don't need 200 leads to double your business. You need to convert at 200% with the same 100 leads. And not enough people are looking at how can they sharpen their skills in order to convert higher with what they already have. They're always just looking for more instead of looking at perfecting what the craft is. So, one of the things, we polled our group the other week, and the number one thing people said that they struggle with is distraction. And I think in this time, as you alluded to, there is 1,000 ways to skin the cat in real estate. There is a multitude of approaches that you could take. There's so many people that are saying, okay, you've got this training, Mike's got this training. There's so many videos on YouTube. For people that are getting confused, lost, overwhelmed, what is your best piece of advice to say, hey, let's get clarity and let's execute?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to number one, like you just mentioned, clarity is the key. What is it that you want to create? Like, what do you want? Why do you want it? Why it's important to you? What is that timeline? Biggest mistake that I see people in this industry don't make is they don't get clarity on a long enough timeline of what they really want to build. Because if you don't have clarity on what it is that you really want, well, then it becomes impossible to reverse engineer those architectural plans and make that a reality. So it's like, okay, like I'm having a conversation the other day with a client of mine that's like, okay, in 10 years, I want to be able to sell my brokerage and exit for this. Within 2 years, I want to be exited from operations. Okay, well, then from there, we can reverse engineer exactly what the agent count is, what their comp structure needs to be, the ancillaries that they need to have inside that organization, to get that valuation, and then we get that 2-year timeline to getting out of operations. Okay, well, we know over the next 2 years, we got to make sure that we are dialing in their leadership team so they can exit from operate. And I know that's, most might be listening to this aren't at that level yet, but that's just an example of this. Like, you got to know. So here's another example. So one of my long-term mentor clients that I've mentored now for about 5 or 6 years, they're a husband and wife team. Now, they were new at this point when we first started working together, and they were like, well, hey, dude, like we're in our early 30s. our goal is to be able to pull our kids out of school. Our kids are young, put them into online homeschool, and we want to travel the world. Now we understand can't retire, but we want to, our kids can do online homeschool. Like we just want our hotel room anywhere, whether we're in Japan, whether we're in Greece, wherever, to be our office. So we can work and play and develop this lifestyle. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, here's how we do this. Now for them, we had to structure a model where it's like, okay, we had to build out, what we call licensed boots on the ground. So, showing agents, but they're doing much more than just showing, they're full-time admin that are just doing that stuff, but then when it comes to like lead gen and whatever, we're like, okay, well, we got to make sure that it's things that can be done, that can be done on your time, and that aren't location specific. So they went out there and started door knocking and built a business off the door. Door knocking's effective. It works. You're proof of that, right? Yeah. So, but if you got to knock these 100 doors every single day, that makes it fucking hard to do when you're in Greece, right? So, so it was like, okay, like we've got to, so we just went hard on online. I'm like, look, we can have these online leads flowing in. There are also great things about online leads. Well, when I say online leads, I got to be careful, because if you look at like a Zillow, Realtor.com, OpCity, Trulia, those are replaced the modern day sign call. Those you have to be very reactive. When I say like Google pay-per-click or Facebook is the juggernaut. There's nothing better out there than Facebook, in my opinion. When it comes to like, if I could have Facebook or Google pay-per-click, I'm doing Facebook all day long. But anyway, with that, okay, it's like it's not a reactive source. The average Facebook lead is in my CRM 6.7 months before they become a client. And that's average. Sometimes you pop them and they're ready to rock and roll sooner than that. Sometimes, like we just had our first one that was our first Facebook lead, our longest one, that was 6 years of follow-up in our system before we actually finally got them as a client. So, but average is 6.7 months. So what I love about like that lead source is, okay, if they're out in excursion, or if the time zones don't quite work, or they can't jump on and operate speed of lead, it doesn't matter. Right. It's like, okay, if I get a Facebook lead, as long as I call them in the first 24 hours, check in, right. And then, but it's that long-term nurture game, right. So, so you got to look at that. And that's really comes down to, when I talk about that 5-step lead generation play, that's really based on, okay, what are your strengths and how do you want to build your business? Right. So, like with me, okay, I'm very introverted. So an introversion doesn't necessarily mean shy. It's how you gain your energy. So I need a lot of solitude time to gain my energy. If I'm around a lot of people for long periods of time, dude, I get drained and I become miserable. So I'm like, okay, well, and also like, dude, I have call reluctance, or I did. So I'm like, dude, I don't want to build my business through cold calls. I want to build it through door knocking. Don't want to build it through networking. Okay, so what else can I go out there and do? Well, I realized, hey man, I want people coming to me. I like people coming to me, so I started looking at it, and I came from the gym business. I'm like, all right, dude, open houses is essentially the same thing as a tour of the gym. People walk in the door, they stop at the front desk, they fill out a guest registration, you develop connection, develop rapport, you give them a tour, you're articulating that your facility can help them get to what their health goals are. I'm like, an open house is the same thing, other than selling a gym membership and then upsell them to a personal training package. I'm just selling them on me as their realtor. So I'm like, okay, boom, open houses. It's all I did for my first year, and led to 48 deals that first year, but then from there, because I didn't have listings, I'm like, well, fuck, dude, I was spending so much time prospecting other agents to just beg them to do their open houses. I'm like, dude, that was like 10 hours of my week, because I was trying to do, at least 4 open houses a week. So I'm like, well, let me go out there and get my own listings, dude. So then I didn't even care about the listing and selling the listing itself. I mean, it was just icing on the cake, right? I was like, so then I was like, well, dude, I don't want to call expires. I don't want to call FSBOs. I would if it was the only play, but again, I like inbound, so I just, came up with a letter that I sent to expireds. Now, when I say it came up with a letter, it's not like I just pulled out of my ass. I mean, this thing took years to figure out and refine, but I have a letter now and a mailing campaign with expireds where I get them to call me, and it converts way higher than you ever could with phone calls, right? So you can do your business how you want to do your business, but you got to figure out what those strengths are. So, figuring out, again, okay, do I want to go inbound? Do I want to be outbound? What is that, based on strengths? Because the more that, so here's a prime example. I have one of my agents that when she first started with me, she was doing, and when I say agents on my own personal team, that, started doing like, following Zillow leads, Facebook leads. And she's like, man, I hate this. This is not me. She's like, dude, I know I'm in sales, but she's like, I hate selling. I hate this. Now, she comes from the entertainment world. She was a model and all of this. And I'm like, well, what do you want to do? And she's like, well, I love, camera and video. And she's like, I really think social media and YouTube primarily, and we're talking not paid, organic, is the way I want to build my business. And I was like, okay, let's do it. Right. Like, because when you are passionate about what you do, when you like it, you're going to put so much, like you couldn't pay me to go to a fucking cold call conference, but I will spend my Friday, Saturday evening binging YouTube, social media, inbound, I bought every fucking Dan Kennedy course on the face of this earth. Like, I just love it. I'm obsessed with it. Right. And she did 10 closings just herself last month, 2.6 million last month, just from YouTube. Like, after splits all said and done, that was like 70 G's in her pocket, just from her fucking YouTube channel, organic, content coming in. So everything works, nothing doesn't. But then the other thing we got to think about here is, again, based on what the market's going on, right? Like, where they congregate, where those ideal clients, what I talked about earlier, because this will pivot and shift. So here's a prime example. For I don't know, probably the last 4 or 5 years, one of our big investor clients, like, we were doing about 20 deals a month with this investor client. Now, these were right to purchase, so they'd go out there and it's like a reverse buy and hold. Like, we'd go out there and find the tenant first, get them qualified, and then they let the tenant go pick out the property. The investor would buy it. And then the person that moved in, our client that picked out, it's kind of a complicated thing because our investor is actually the client. But then they would have up to 5 years at predetermined prices to go out there and buy that property back. Well, when cost of capital went up, started in 2022, dude, they went from averaging 20 units a month with this one investor to they fucking pulled out and buying zip right now. Okay, well, we were very heavy into marketing and prospecting, obviously, for that clientele. Well, it dried up overnight. And that shit's going to happen. So you got to pivot, shift, and adapt, So I know it's a longer answer there, but it's not. I think people get stuck on this stuff because they're just trying to look for that quick fix, right? But an example of this is like, okay, should I be on Facebook? Should I be on Instagram? Should I be on TikTok? Should I be on Twitter? Should I be on, dude, like what? Okay, like the only platform that I don't enjoy any of them, but I somewhat enjoy if I'm ever going to spend my own time on there for like entertainment is Twitter. Dude, I don't have any business or any clientele that's really coming from Twitter. Dude, like Facebook is the juggernaut for me. Instagram is the secondary, when it comes to, social media platforms. I hate being on both of those. It's not about what I like. It's about where the fuck are my ideal clients at?
Yeah. I think it's a blend of that too, because as you alluded to, you have to be able to find things that you're actually going to enjoy, because people ask all the time, like, you have obviously got an incredible CRM and people asked me yesterday, what's Mike, there's this CRM, that CRM, that, what's the best one? I'm like, the one that you're going to consistently use. It doesn't fucking matter.
Well, not just that you're going to consistently use, as I said earlier, because that's what that's 100% important, 100% true. Yeah. But then from there, as we said, like, your CRM is only as good as the instructions you feed it. So based on your processes, and this is not just true for a CRM, any system. The system exists for our processes to live inside of it and to be executed upon. So what CRM, based on the way that I do my business, allows for my processes to be executed on. Like, I'm not going to just adapt my processes to a CRM because that CRM doesn't do what I need it to do. No, like, the system is the best one to allow me to execute on my processes. Most people just have no fucking clue what their processes are. So they, I'm like, look, a CRM's only, you got to learn it, you got to master it, you got to use it, but you got to feed it the right instructions. You can have, the most expensive cream of the crop platform out there, but if it doesn't have the right instructions, it's going to fail.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people overcomplicate what you're alluding to too, in terms of like processes. They think it's some complex, initiative. And I think you already touched on it, but for agents that are going through the motion of working with clients, creating checklists of everything that you do throughout the process, start to finish, becomes your process. And being able to, again, train somebody like a TC or an assistant or an admin, being able to get them to support you. If you don't have anything written out, it's really difficult to bring somebody into the ecosystem and get them to help you with that stuff. So, for me, looking at the whole picture, I think that one of the last things that I hear all the time is scheduling. And we hear this all the time, which is, on an ideal day, whether it be a day or a week, what is your recommendation for people in terms of saying, okay, you should have a certain amount of time for prospecting, a certain amount of time for follow-up, a certain amount of time for data analysis, or, to give people foundational elements of what would go into a schedule to start pulling these pieces together? What's typically your advice in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on, there's and I want to give clear, concrete answers, but it gets tough because obviously a brand new agent is going to be different than a very seasoned, high producing agent versus a team leader versus a brokerage owner. Like for, so like for me, I'm not doing any of that shit. Like I'm spending all my time working on the business, not in the business, so, but let's just say, it's a brand new agent, okay. Well, then from there, number one, you gotta figure out how many hours a week are you willing and or able to go out there and work. Right. So, I mean, that's just number one, like, and it's going to be different for everybody. And I'm not one to judge on that. For some, I'll be 20 hours a week, 40 hours a week. If you're like me and you just like to fucking work, you're going to work 100 hours a week, right. So you figure out what that is. Then from there, I just try to keep it very simplistic, man. So the 80-20 rule, dude, 80% of your time should be focused on your money-making activities, 20% of your time, your essential non-money-making activities. So what are those? There's only 3 ways that real estate agents make their money, which is setting appointments, conducting appointments, negotiating contracts, right? So setting appointments is going to be your lead gen, lead follow-up. Then obviously conducting those appointments. So meaning conducting buyer consultations, listing consultations, and then negotiating contracts, right? And part of negotiating contracts, is I got to go out there and show these properties, to these people. Like it's part of that progression. But everything else outside of those 3 things then become essential non-money making activities. So all of your paperwork, all the shit that like, man, this deal's under contract. I gotta, order inspections. I gotta do all of this stuff. Now, some people will get confused and they'll say to me, well, man, I gotta go out there and negotiate, or I gotta go out there and, be at this home inspection because like this is necessary to get the deal closed. I'm like, that's nurturing business that you already have in the pipeline. Right. So when you think of money-making activities, what are the activities I'm focused on that if I have 2 deals under contract that are leading me to 3 or 4? So then I just tell new agents, like, look, dude, 80% of your time. So if you're working 10-hour days, 8 hours of your day on your money-making activities, and then from there, 2 hours of your day on the essential non-money-making activities, and then cut out all the bullshit. Most agents will sit there and tell me like, oh, dude, I'm working hard. And I'll really start breaking down their schedule. And I'm like, dude, you're saying you're working 12 hours and you physically, like, that could be argued, like you're in the office or whatever, 12 hours a day. But I'm like, when we start breaking down, I'm like, you really only got about 3 hours of work done today. Right? Like, as much as I love, YouTube and putting content out there, like what we're doing right now and people listening and watching this, for you and I, this is work because this is how we create awareness and attention and but for those watching and listening to this, this is not work for you, right? Like you should be watching this while you're in the fucking gym, while you're like driving to an appointment, but if you're sitting your ass in your office right now and you're watching this or listening to this and you think that this is proactive work for you, sorry to burst your bubble, but it's not, right? Like you gotta be, and dude, I mean, when you start breaking it down as an individual agent, it's about 20 hours per closed deal, right? At least, if you are laser fucking focused and you are putting in the work, right? Like you're not, if I'm doing dials, right? It's like, okay, like I call the number, bam, hang up, call the next. Like I'm not fucking twiddling my thumbs. Like if you were intentional, with your time and you're working decently efficient, we broke it down where it's about 20 hours per closing. So then it's like, okay, like what are you really doing with your time? People are like, well, man, I'm popping 2 deals a month and I'm at a capacity. I'm like, okay, are you really? Right? Like really breaking this down.
Yeah, well, I think again, like so many things to unpack there. Being intentional is one thing too that I think helped me with door knocking, where a lot of people are just trying to hit metrics because a coach told them to bang out 300 calls, but if they get one objection, they're hanging up and on to the next one. They're not even being intentional with trying to get the appointment. And then, as you alluded to, there's so many people that are consuming for entertainment but not consuming for education. And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to get off this and go back to the same routine that they just wasted an hour to learn, but not implement. And there's so many people that are these serial learners, not actually implementing anything that they're learning. And it's throwing them for a loop.
Yeah. I had a lady reach out to me, who's now a coaching client of mine, but she reached out to me and she's like, and she was in a bad state. She was like, dude, like, she did deals before, but things dried up and she just, and the hurricane hit because where she was located, whatever. And, but anyway, she was in a bad financial state. So I told her, I'm like, dude, I'm not going to let you buy my coaching right now. I'm like, this is going to be a distraction for you. I'm like, ethically, I can't do it. I'm like, what you need to do, I'm like, you need to go out there and get 5 deals under contract and pop those 5 deals. Yeah. Like, go do that. And then, you can jump into my coaching because that's going to solve your current financial situation, right? I don't want her getting worse and going into more debt and, because I'm like, a lot of the shit I'm going to show you is going to be working on your business. And yeah, it's going to make a big difference. But like right now, like, the things to do to go out there and fucking sell 5 homes right now. Like, but I'm like, but with that being said, I want you working 12 hours a day at a minimum, but every hour of that day, you need to be obsessed with every activity you're doing. Is this leading to a deal popping? But most people just don't operate from that right level of urgency. Like just asking yourself, okay, is this leading me closing a deal? Is this actually truly going to generate business or not? And if not, okay, then what the fuck are you doing it for? Most people, I think, just, what's the saying out there? They, stay, they're busy, not productive, right? And they, utilize subconsciously excuses to stay busy so they don't have to do the shit that's actually productive and, whatnot there.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about being busy versus productive. And I think, one of the best analogies of this is looking at like the Olympics team in rowing and, they were failing at the Olympics and they started asking themselves, does this make the boat go faster? Will this make the boat go faster? And there's a book about it, right? And the question that they started asking during training, their nutrition, everything they put into their body, everything they put into their mind was, will it make the boat go faster? And if the answer is no, they don't do it. So the question becomes, as you're alluding to, will what I'm doing right now get me closer to the next deal? And what you'll find is 80% of your activities aren't getting you in any way, shape, or form closer. You're being busy, not productive. And a lot of people are using that as a scapegoat to execute, because the things that you need to do to actually get clients, as we all talked about, aren't fucking fun in the beginning. No matter where you slice and dice it, you need to earn your stripes to get to the point where you can make it fun by finding that niche of your own craft. So, as we start to pull this full circle, a couple things that I just want to unpack, final 2 things, which is, how do you operate on a daily basis? Like for me, for example, like I use a power list where I write out the 5 income producing activities that I need to do every single day. For you or for anybody that you're coaching, for saying, okay, I know I need to focus on getting clients, servicing clients, and fulfilling and nurturing clients. Are you using a certain tool, a tracking mechanism, your CRM that you have with Perfect Storm, or what is your kind of routine structured under to give you that clarity and make sure that you're always working on needle moving activities if you are going to take 12 hours for tracking the progress?
Yeah. So number one, I mentioned frameworks, right? So I have my success framework. So success framework is, okay, you get clarity on what you want, why you want it, why it's important to you. Then boom, that becomes the goal. Then from there, you make the decision to fully commit to making that goal a reality. So commitment is, I'm going to do whatever is necessary to make this goal a reality, regardless of the resistance that I experience, right? Commitment is, I'm going to do the activity regardless of my emotional state, right? You can't be interested, you got to be committed. And that becomes important because sometimes we say we want certain things when we're not willing. Like, somebody comes to me and says, oh, dude, Josh, I want to have, 7% body fat like you do. And then I break down what my diet is and what I go through for this. And the fact that, like, dude, my diet consists of eggs and freaking meat and protein shakes and like, there's nothing, fun about it when it, like, are you willing to do this 7 days a week consistent, right? And then people are like, fuck that, right? Like, yeah. Okay, there's no right or wrong, but like, are you willing? I don't think a lot of people understand. Like, I hear people all the time, like, oh, I want to make $400,000 a year in this business. I'm like, okay, like especially like, like I have one of my teammates that brand new in the industry. Now he comes from a lot of sales experience though. So, he's a savage in sales in the car business. And I was like, dude, like, you can make this a reality. A lot of people have done it. Coach a lot of people doing it, like, but here's what it's going to take. Are you willing to do these things? Yeah, right. Are you willing to work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week for your first 12 months? Because that's what it's going to take to make that kind of money your first year in the business out of the gate, right? Not saying for season. Then from there, okay, now that I'm going to commit to this thing. Then from there, it's identify the best proven plan to get you from where you're at to where it is that you want to go. Right. So a lot of people go out there and they're executing each and every day, but they don't have a proven plan. Like, we are blessed to be in a niche, in an industry where we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Anytime I set a goal or have a goal, the first thing that I ask myself is, who do I need to R&D from? Who do I need to rip off and duplicate from to go out there and crush this? Like, if I want to build my business off social media, dude, I'm going to fucking jump in Mike Sherrard's training. Like, why would I go out there and try to figure this shit out on my own when I can just go to your training? You tell me exactly what to do, when to do it. I got the plan now. I just got to fucking execute. I can take what took you, 5, 6, plus years and thousands of hours to go out there and learn. And I can learn it in what a fucking, I've binged your shit. Like, I've binged some of your fucking whole entire, whether it be Facebook or Instagram, whatever, like, binge that shit in a weekend. Yeah, right. Like, you can fucking, so what is the best proven plan to get you from where you're at to where you want to go? So then you eliminate the guesswork and you can just execute, because it's hard enough just to execute, right? Like to just show up to the gym every day is hard enough. Okay, well, like have that proven plan so you can eliminate the guesswork. Then from there, my most powerful, like the most powerful daily tactical thing I've ever done in my life is this thing right here, which is my daily planning and reflection. And when I say my daily plan and reflection, I learned this from my mentor, Darren Hardy, who learned it from his mentor, Jim Rohn, who learned it from his mentor, right? There's nothing new, right? With this, but I take about 20 minutes every day. I do this at the end of my workday, right? So then from there, because I already know the proven plan, and I guess I should retract or go back to that for a second. Like you need to know. It's like the first thing I do with my coaching clients, we get clarity on what they want, why it's important, and we make sure we get that plan in place. So then from there, we know, okay, for the next 12 months, what you need to do over the next 12 months to make your goal reality. What then you need to, so we got to know yearly, we got to know monthly, we got to know weekly, and then you got to know daily, right? Like most people, when they're like, oh dude, I want to have a productive day. I'm going to show up to the office and work hard today. And then if you ask yourself, well, what do I need to do today? Or what am I going to do today? You've already lost that fucking day. You're already defeated. Like you need to know. And if you have teams, where every one of your people inside your organization needs to know what winning looks like for that day. So you know exactly what are the KPIs I must hit, how many leads per lead source, how many reach outs, how many combos, how many, whatever, like you got to know that stuff, right? You're not going to create success otherwise, right? Not long lasting. You might get lucky, but okay. So then from there, my planning reflection. So, obviously I'll go out there, plan whatever my next day is based on, okay, what my yearly goal is, based on where I'm at year to date, week to date, month to date. What do my numbers need to be tomorrow to go out there and win? What does the next 24 hours of my life need to look like? So then I know exactly, again, leads per lead source, what those KPIs are, all of those are that need to go out there and win. And I don't plan just for business, it's personal life too. And people will be like, well, why do you plan daily, for this stuff, reflect and plan daily? I'm like, look, because I have days I lose, right? Now it may not be intentional. Maybe my kid gets strep throat and I got to go pick him up from school. I had an agent not too long ago. We're sitting in my, office and just doing a call session, and gets a call and one of his listings got vandalized and got burnt to the ground. Luckily, everybody was okay. But his clients were on vacation out of town. So he was the only representative that could be, like, he had to fucking drop everything and go meet with the fire department at that property for his clients. Okay, that interrupted, like he didn't meet his KPIs that day. Okay, life happens. Dude, an airplane spends 90% of its time in the air adjusting its nose to the target because of fucking turbulence. Turbulence is gonna happen in life. You're gonna have days where you're ahead, you're gonna have days where you're on target, you're gonna have days where you miss that target. Okay, now I can adjust, I can pivot those numbers, based on what won or lost. So, I spend that. So I know though, from the second I wake up to the second I go to bed, what my day must look like to go out there and win. And not only do I know it, like I have a 24-hour calendar, but 15-minute increments. So I don't just have a to-do list. It is on a fucking calendar. Yeah. And then from there, you got to like manage tasks and shit. That's going to be in my CRM, and we call it clearing the plate. Like as long as your CRM is set up correctly, it's like all you got to do, should have to do, at least when it comes to your real estate tasks, for lead conversion, is clear out your daily task queue. So we just have a rule. Everybody's got to clear out their plate daily inside our organization. Right. So, and then, once I plan that day, I'll go execute. Then, after the first day of planning, it always starts with reflection, right? Because I don't want to just get through the day. I want to get from it. So, okay, here was what I needed to do to win today, right? What didn't get hit? What got in the way? And then I'm assessing, okay, every activity that I got involved in, is there anything that was a waste of time? Anything that I allowed to rob my time, energy, and focus? Okay, let me learn from that, ensure it doesn't happen again, and then I'm looking at, okay, all the things that were in alignment with my goals. Is there anything I can become more effective and efficient at? Even within seconds and pennies, dude. I like people, just, it only takes a couple minutes. Well, if that takes a couple minutes, a few times a day, every single day, like add that up over your career, you've lost like a year of your fucking life, right? So reflect, then put out the next perfect plan. So then from there, the next 16, 17 hours of my life, meaning business and personal, right? Like assuming if you slept 8 hours a day. It's like all I do, dude, I don't focus on the week. It's like all I got to do is execute over this next 16 hours. That's it. And if I just win the next 16 hours, I learned this from John C. Maxwell. He's like, dude, if you just learn to take care of today, tomorrow will take care of itself.
100%, man. I absolutely love that. And I think breaking that down, about winning the day, a couple things that I think are really important here, because this is where I've seen a lot of people fall off track, where they get inspired after watching something like this and they're ready to go build out the perfect day, and they're so not familiar with executing at a high level that they don't hit their new massive goals that they have for the day, and then they don't do shit. And one of the things that my coach helped me with, George Bryant, is understanding the concept of floor and ceiling, and saying, okay, well, my perfect day of prospecting is going to be 200 calls or whatever that looks like. Well, on an ideal day I might do 300, but on a bare minimum, on the floor, I'm doing 50 calls. Come hell or high water, I'm doing 50 calls. And what happens with a lot of people is they put out these huge goals for content, for doing a video a freaking day, or going to the gym or anything, but they're trying to operate at their ceiling at all times, which is not possible for a lot of people. And if they dip below that ceiling, they don't revert to a floor, they revert to doing nothing. And then they fall off track, get out of momentum, and that really struggles. And I think, the last concept that I think really resonates with what you're talking about is the movable middle. Is so many people that are trying to say, okay, I've done 0 deals, I've basically fucked off the last 2 years. I want to do 24 deals this year. And to them, 24 deals is so far to imagine because they haven't even done one. And the movable middle of just saying, hey, well, if you can get 1, you can get 2. If you get 2, you can get 4. And just saying, all we need to do is focus on that next deal, not 24 deals, the next deal. Because I found this in the beginning when somebody said, well, you could make $1 million in a year. Well, when I'm struggling to pay for my rent for this month, that seems incomprehensible. Whereas when you could start focusing on the incremental progress, that will get you there if you're focusing on the right things. So I love that approach to a daily schedule and just focusing on winning the day, because all too many people are focusing on too big of a picture, too big of a time horizon to make progress.
Yeah, I like to use a lot of health and fitness analogies. Number one, because that's just my background, but number two, it's like we all get it and understand it.
Yeah.
And now I can sit there. So I know that you know this, but your audience may not. But I used to be morbidly obese, almost over 100 pounds more than I am today. So I was pushing 280 pounds, at my heaviest. And but like, dude, I didn't focus on, okay, I need to lose 100 pounds and get to this. What I focus on is just, again, like, what do I need to do daily? What's my daily diet? What's my daily activity? And then every day I just focus on those things. You focus on the lead measure, not the lag. Yeah, right? Okay. You attach to the process, detach from the outcome. You just focus on those things. It's like we don't focus on closings on my team, even though that's the outcome that we want. But what do we focus on, man? We're focused on, like, on a daily basis, focused, on a lead flow coming in, pay attention to that. But even more importantly than that, we're focused on reach outs, conversations, and appointments set. Like, we know that those 3 KPIs are hit each day, each week, each month. Like, the fucking closings are going to happen. It's just, it's physics, right? Like, just calculus, man, with that. And then, the only thing that I add there is, like, look, like, let's just say because I want to, for those newer, people that are newer to sales, newer to, whatever, is, look, like, this stuff can seem overwhelming. So, like, here's an example, like with my agents, because we do so much with social media. I'm like, look, I want to get everybody to posting at least 4 pieces of content on social media, and they can repurpose that in different platforms per day. We have our posting strategy and it just crushes, right? But then, with that, some people are like, fuck, 4 pieces. So you're telling me I got to do 2 stories a day, 1 reel a day, and 1 post at a minimum each and every day, and then, share that here and share that there. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I get it. Let's just start with 1 a day. Right. And then once that becomes easy, that becomes routine. Now let's go to 2. So if I have somebody that's never done, high volume follow-up calls or never done calls, like, let's just say I have a teacher, because I've recruited a lot of teachers, right? For they make awesome agents, dude. Well, they've never, been in sales, and they know how to sell because they know how to get their kids to influence their kid. They know the art of influence, but in their minds, they don't know, and influence is sales, right? So they just don't know that they have that gift yet, right? But with that, I'm like, hey, if you got to be doing 150 reach outs a day, let's just say, okay, then let's just start with 20. Yeah, you can do 20 in about 45 minutes. Let's just start there, and then get that, like, once you get some wins, and like, just a better example maybe, and that's a good one. But okay, if I have somebody that comes to me that's like, dude, Josh, I can't get out of bed before 8. I know I need to start getting up at 5, but it's just too tough. Okay, cool. Let's not go from 8 to 5. Let's go from 8 to 7:30. And let's do that for the next 3 or 4 weeks until it becomes easy. Like, you got that down. Then we'll go 7:30 to 7. then 7 to 6. Like, sometimes you got to ease into shit. It's like when I, take something that never worked out before, I'm not going to start, having them train in the gym 5 days a week, fucking hour, like doing 16 to 20 sets per body part. Dude, they would become crippled. Like we ease into this stuff, so, and I don't know if that helps anybody, but because like on my team, like I love new agents, dude, right? That's who I go after, brand new agents that are green as green. Do they have big goals? They don't have bad habits yet, but this is stuff that we just deal with all the time, because it's a new beast for them, right?
Yeah, I love it, dude. I think it's so powerful. And again, you've just got the most incredible frameworks. And I think it's powerful that you've been able to bring them into frameworks, because it gives people clarity on something that they can repeat and that they can remember. So I love that you've done this, and I'm just forever grateful for everything that you do. The last thing that I want to say and ask you, just because you do work with so many people and you're putting out so much insanely valuable content on your platforms, for people that are struggling right now, what is your advice for what they should be doing or focusing on for the latter half of this year, for the next 6 months, saying, okay, here's where we're at, you haven't been doing too well, here's what you should be focusing on going forward to start making that incremental progress? Do you have any piece of advice based on where we're at today in this kind of crazy market?
Yeah, I mean, number one, like, you guys gotta get to work.
Yeah.
Right. Like, dude, I'll just be real. I'm not trying to be Chicken Little, sky is falling, but I have never, and I'm a massive history buff, dude. Right. So I have never seen at any point in recorded time a more vulnerable time in ever that we are in financially. A lot of other shit right now, which I won't get into because this would be like a 3-hour conversation. But we got deep low, like people that think like this shit is fine. Shit, like you got to understand that. We've had an artificial, like, this isn't like all of a sudden the economy was good and it's bad. And like, dude, like this shit broke during the great financial crisis. It was never fixed, right? So if you look at since 2007, we've had an artificial economy. That's all of this growth, everything that we've seen, dude, has been quantitative easing and stimulus, monetization of debt. We'd be at a 1% year-over-year GDP decline, for the last 16 years. So if it wasn't for all this fucking fake money that's being infused in the economy, that's artificial, we'd be in a 16-year-long depression, right? Now I'm not sitting here saying that this is, I don't know how long this can continue. I guess we have monopoly money right now. We've switched into MMT, whatever, but there's been 500 fiat currencies prior to the US dollar. All of them have suffered the same fate. I'm not saying that this thing's going to collapse tomorrow, but what I'm saying is, if you care about your success, your family's success, and taking care of yourself and your family, you need to get to fucking work, and at a level that you never have ever before in your life. If you look at the middle class is getting wiped out, there's not a need for it anymore now that the industrial revolution is essentially done and over with. So that gap is getting wide, and we see it. Go to any city and go out there and watch the homeless population just expand, growing. People are getting richer, people are getting poorer. You got to pick and choose what fucking side of the equation you want to be on. So, dude, I'm not one of these that's like, oh yeah, just go out there and enjoy life. There's been seasons and time for that. Right now, like, we all need to get to work. I am working more and harder than I ever have in my life at this moment, because I just see the writing on the wall here. Right? When it comes to that. So then from there, this is, again, not one of those times to be poor me, like, quit being a narcissistic little wussy. Yeah, right. Quit complaining, quit whining, get to work. You got to deal in realities. And I don't mean to be a dick, but we got to quit being delusional. Then from there, I'd look at, if you're struggling right now and you're not popping business, when it comes to your strategies, really pay attention to, what now money sources are versus long-term money. So an example of this, I had somebody reach out to me not too long ago and they were working on good things. They're building out their YouTube channel, they're building out some marketing, building out social media stuff. But I'm like, look, based on their run rate, right? Which means how much money you have in your bank right now, what are your living expenses, your operational expenses? I'm like, based on your current run rate, by the time those things kick in, because like a YouTube channel, average is like 9 months before we start seeing consistent business coming on. Like, this takes time for the algorithm to kick in. I'm like, you're going to be a statistic. You're going to be broke. You're going to be out of the business before you're able to see the fruits of those things. So I'm like, I'm not saying to not keep working on those things, but you need now fucking money. Like, you need to focus on there's now money making activities, and there's the longer term pipeline activities. So what I recommend agents is, like, get 1 or 2 now money making activities, and then get 1 or 2 for that long pipeline. And everybody should be focusing on past client repeat referral business. Cause that's how you take a $10,000 closing to be a $70,000 lifetime value. That's how you increase LTV of a client, is really maximizing on that past client repeat referral game. Right. But okay, like, so how do I go out there and make now business, dude? Open houses. I mean, anything that's really prospecting based, open houses, calling expires, calling FSBOs. Right now we're slaying it with lender leads, so we started seeing, cost of capital going up. So all these lenders are getting, canned, getting fired, and that's not funny. It sucks for them, but I'm like, okay, they got so inundated with all these refis and easy business. So I just started reaching out to all these lenders, just saying, hey, dude, like, let us play ISA for you and your business. Like, give us all your leads, anybody that's applied for a loan, or anybody that's, whatever, that just didn't come to fruition. I'll call them on your behalf. We'll convert them. You get the loan. We get the buy side business. Like, we both win. Like, most lenders just aren't used to having to work fucking lists like we are in this business. So, dude, we got 17 lender partners that we're working with. Like, right now I'm spending essentially $0 on lead gen. I have more leads coming in than ever before. I got one lender, dude, that sent us $50,000 a month of Zillow mortgage leads. Right? Like, it's just insane. Well, those, dude, that's like now fucking business. So when I say now business, what is going to lead to you getting a commission check in your hand in less than 90 days? So make sure that you are focusing on that timeline. Like, what are my now business sources? And the cool thing is, like, agents will come to me and say, like, dude, I don't want to do open houses. Yeah, I get it. Like, I haven't done an open house personally in, like, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, 15 years. It's been a long time. It's what I did in the beginning, right, to go out there and crush it, and what I'll have new agents do on my team. Because, like, if I do an open house, right, like, it's an impossibility for me to go out there. Now, I don't want to say, there might be a time, but over a long enough timeline with the law of averages, it's essentially an impossibility for me to do 2 open houses this weekend and not get one client from it and one closing. Right? I mean, we worst case, we're converting 1 out of 15, right? Like, 1 out of 15 people through that, leads come to the open house, boom, cash, in our hand. Right. So, like, again, stacking those things.
I love it, man. Well, there's not much more we can unpack on this, because that's just so valuable, dude. And I just love your perspective, because I think, again, there's so many people that are getting coddled, sugar-coated information's being shared with them, and similar to what you echoed. I'm putting in more time than I ever have in my life right now, because I know that not only is our agents physically checking out from the business and removing their license, where the client's going to go, but there's another 50% of them that are holding their license and mentally checking out. So they're not even putting effort into their business. This is the best time to be able to get back to work, stay focused, disciplined and consistent, and execute. So, dude, where do people find more about you, and whether they want to work with you or whatever can be done? There's going to be a lot of people. So where should people be going to link up?
Yeah, man. I mean, you go to gsdmode.com. You can go to, my YouTube channel, just type in, pretty much in everywhere. It's Joshua Smith GSD. So whether you want to connect with me, Facebook, Instagram, whether you want to connect with me on YouTube, gsdmode.com is kind of the hub for all of that. I've had my podcast for 8 years, thousands of podcasts out there. Mike's been on several times. Just a lot of badasses out there. So a lot of great free training, free content out there. That's where I recommend everybody start. And then from there, if you're interested, man, I've got, mentorship coaching program. I've got, software. If you're interested in starting a brokerage, we have, partnership and franchise opportunities there too. So yeah, but gsdmode.com or anywhere, any social media platform, just Joshua Smith GSD. Other than TikTok, I just started that. It's so funny, Mike. I had a dude, I went to follow a guy that I know, and he shot me a text message right away. He's like, dude, I get so many bots, that fake accounts. Like, is this really you? Because I only have like 3 followers. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I finally jumped on the TikTok bandwagon. So I'm posting content there, but I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So that may not be the best place to follow me at yet.
I love it, dude. That's awesome. Well, I'm super excited to follow your journey on there, because I'm still trying to figure it out too. But I appreciate you, man. So grateful for what you've done for not only my career, but also the entire industry, and always over delivering on value. So thank you, brother. I appreciate you. And guys, make sure to go check out all of Joshua's incredible stuff. It truly will change your life like it has for mine.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Honor being here, man.
Take care, guys.